My husband thrives on watching me engage in these activities. It started as a fleeting instant, a seemingly innocent occurrence that barely registered in my mind. However, upon reflection, I understand how dangerously close I was to going too far. The most shocking revelation is that my husband noticed. Not only did he notice it, but he also fueled the flames of desire in the beginning. But as events unfolded, I came to understand that there was a far more profound truth lurking beneath the surface. Let us refer to him as Nathan. He's been a constant presence for years. An old family friend whose charm is disarming and whose laid-back demeanor masks a deeper intensity. He possesses an uncanny ability to illuminate a room, effortlessly drawing everyone into his orbit, leaving them captivated and yearning for more. I'll confess there has always been an undeniable tension between us, but I've always brushed it off as mere harmless chemistry. After all, I am bound by vows, blissfully entwined in the sacred bond of marriage. But then Nathan began to drop unsettling re-Daniels that pierced the air, each one a little too personal, a little too familiar, sending shivers down her spine. He would say, "You're absolutely radiant today." Or, "How I long for my girlfriend to laugh at my jokes with the same fervor and delight that you do." I first brushed it off as merely a reflection of his mischievous spirit. However, my husband, Daniel, noticed a subtle change in his behavior, hinting at an impending storm. Daniel appeared utterly unfazed, devoid of any trace of envy or irritation. Instead, a spark of intrigue flickered in his eyes. Nathan possesses an exquisite taste that captivates all who encounter it. At first, it appeared to be nothing more than a trivial, lighthearted game, but then the boundaries began to dissolve. One fateful night, as we toiled away, tidying up the remnants of a lively dinner party, he unleashed a joke that pierced the air, igniting a burst of laughter from deep within me. Yet, there was an undeniable intensity in his tone that captivated me, stirring a thrill deep within. That was the moment everything changed. Daniel began to pressure me to transform my appearance whenever Nathan was near, urging me to laugh more heartily at his jokes and to draw nearer during those charged late-night conversations. One fateful night, he proposed that I venture out with Nathan, just the two of us, to gather supplies for the barbecue we were hosting. The air was thick with anticipation, and little did we know, this seemingly innocent outing would spiral into something far more perilous. "It'll be faster without me," he declared, his voice laced with an unsettling calmness that sent shivers down the spine. Yet, the depths of his gaze revealed a tale far more haunting. A storm of doubt surged within me, leaving me to question whether there was a hidden truth lurking beneath the surface, or if this was merely Daniel's unwavering confidence in our marriage that was blinding him to the cracks forming around us. Then, during that fateful car ride with Nathan, an event unfolded that irrevocably altered the course of everything. As we slid into the car that evening, an electric tension crackled in the air, leaving us feeling both cool and on edge, a sensation I couldn't fully grasp. I struggled to dispel the unsettling sensation that this was Nathan, the one with whom I had shared an abundance of laughter and unforgettable memories. Always surrounded by Daniel or our other friends, the weight of the past loomed heavily, casting a shadow over the present. So this trip was no different, was it? The drive began in a mundane haze, punctuated only by trivial chatter about the barbecue and the snacks we ought to procure. But beneath the surface, an undercurrent of tension simmered, hinting at the storm that lay ahead. But then Nathan turned to me, his trade, Daniel grin cutting through the tension, and he said, "You've been different lately in a good way." The moment was electrified as the weight of his words hung in the air. I stood paralyzed, a tempest of uncertainty raging within me, grappling with the weight of my silence. How could such an event happen? I have no idea where her lighter is. No matter what it is, it suits you perfectly. "Yes," he shrugged, his gaze piercing into mine, lingering for a heartbeat that felt like an eternity. I let out a strained chuckle, my heart racing as I hastily exited the car, brushing aside his comment as if it were nothing, though a storm of unease brewed within me. Yet, deep within, a tempest brewed, a volatile blend of flattery and anxiety that threatened to consume everything in its path. He shifted the conversation to Daniel, his voice laced with tension, and declared, "He's a lucky guy." He gazed at me with a smile that held secrets and unspoken tension. A wave of tension washed over me, tightening the knot in my stomach. Not every husband would be so nonchalant about our relationship, and the weight of that uncertainty loomed heavily in the air. Was it a sin that his words pierced through the chaos of the store, making me feel seen in a world that often overlooked me? In that fleeting moment, Our fingers collided as we both lunged for the bag of chips, and he lingered, his hand refusing to retreat immediately. It was a seemingly insignificant detail, yet it haunted my thoughts as we left the store and made our way home, an unsettling weight pressing down on my chest. Attempt, inquire, and express with a sense of levity. The word lingered ominously in the air, its implications coiling like a serpent in my mind, ready to strike. Is Daniel truly as unfazed by this as Nathan believed? Or could there be something far more sinister lurking beneath the surface? He paused, a storm of thoughts raging within him as he weighed the gravity of his words. Some guys might seethe with jealousy, but not Daniel. He stood apart, unyielding and resolute. He's completely unfazed by it. It's utterly invigorating. As we stepped through the door, Daniel loomed on the porch, a beer in hand, his gaze piercing with an unsettling curiosity that sent a shiver down my spine. He inquired with an air of nonchalance about the tumultuous journey I had endured, but his eyes flickered between me and Nathan, a desperate search for understanding, as if he were attempting to decipher a cryptic manuscript hidden in shadows. I forced a smile, my heart racing, and rushed past him, desperate to escape into the shadows of the house. But I could sense their piercing gaze fixed upon me. The unspoken tension crackled in the air that night as we lay in bed, and I felt the weight of my emotions pressing down on me, desperate to break free. Daniel, with a pounding heart, I cautiously approached him, my voice trembling as I dared to ask if I could pose a question. He turned to me, his expression a mask of calmness, yet his eyes burned with an intense focus. Without a doubt, I inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on me. Could you please share your reasons for requesting that I accompany Nathan? I trust you, Daniel declared with unwavering conviction, and in that moment, I knew I could trust him completely. However, as a wave of relief washed over me, his next words shook me completely. Honestly, I believe this is what you truly need. His words echoed in my mind, haunting me long after they left his lips. It was an excellent experience for me. What could that possibly signify? A gnawing suspicion clawed at me, an unsettling certainty that Daniel was concealing something monumental, something that could shatter everything I thought I knew. Yet, I found myself paralyzed, unable to confront him in that moment. Daniel's slow, deliberate smile today pierced through the air, sending icy shivers racing down my spine. The following days unfolded with a deceptive normalcy, or so it appeared. Daniel continued his routine, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath the surface, while I became acutely attuned to every minute detail, each moment heavy with unspoken tension. Nathan's presence was electric, a force that shifted the atmosphere the moment he entered the room. It was as if I was viewing him through a heightened lens, where every glance and gesture crackled with intensity. One fateful evening, during a seemingly casual dinner with mutual friends, he arrived late, as was his custom, but when he stepped through the door, his gaze locked onto mine, and I felt the weight of that moment, heavy and undeniable. In an instant, the charged atmosphere I had desperately attempted to dismiss caught Daniel's attention, locking onto Nathan with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. He called out, waving him over with urgency. "You've got to try the ribs. They're her best yet." His intense emphasis on her sent a rush of heat to my cheeks as the night unfolded, thick with unspoken tension. As I moved toward the kitchen, the air thick with tension, I felt Nathan's eyes on me, glances filled with an intensity that unsettled me, stirring emotions I wasn't prepared to face that sent a shiver down my spine. It was more than once. It was a silent acknowledgement of something unspoken, a dangerous game unfolding in the shadows. He trailed behind me, his voice laced with urgency. "You're avoiding me," he declared, his eyes brimming with anger. Leaning against the counter, I felt a surge of tension as I nervously laughed. My gaze fixated on the bottle as I uncorked it, the air thick with anticipation. "Don't be absurd, I'm not avoiding you." He stepped closer, his voice a low, urgent whisper. "You know, you can talk to me about anything, right? I mean, if something is upsetting you." I finally looked up at him, and for a heartbeat, the air caught in my throat as I was ensnared by the fierce intensity of his gaze, rendering me paralyzed and unable to move any longer. I am utterly unfazed by anything that comes my way. I spun around with urgency, my heart pounding violently in my chest, a silent alarm that screamed my fear, and I sensed he was acutely aware of my turmoil. Daniel burst in, cutting off any chance for further words. His timing was chillingly impeccable, and he declared, "There you are." With a piercing gaze and an air of tension, "Is everything truly all right?" With a strained smile, I replied, my voice barely masking the tension that hung in the air. In here, yet, I could sense the tension building within me. And as the last guest left, the air grew thick with unspoken words. Daniel and I remained on the couch, enveloped in a heavy silence that crackled with unacknowledged feelings. A palpable tension hung in the air as I felt his piercing gaze fixed upon me, an unyielding anticipation building as he awaited my words to finally break the silence. He began to address you and Nathan with a steady yet forceful intensity, each word dripping with purpose. Do you not feel the tension mounting, the distance closing in? As friends, I leaned in, my voice low and urgent, demanding to know why he averted his gaze. But his eyes remained locked onto mine, a silent storm simmering beneath the surface. The way he gazed at you, and the way you returned his stare, sent a jolt through my core, twisting my stomach into knots of unease. What does it signify? Perhaps you should dare to try it and witness the unfolding chaos. For Daniel's smile was a chilling facade, devoid of warmth, his eyes betraying a darkness that sent shivers down the spine. As I gazed at him, a wave of disbelief swept over me. Are you grave right now? His expression was a mask of unyielding resolve. In that moment of silence, I passionately declared that life is too short to overlook the things that ignite a deep sense of purpose within us. Could the moment truly be a test? Was permission genuinely granted to me, or could it be a cunning trap, lurking in the shadows, waiting to ensnare the unsuspecting? In any case, an unsettling certainty gripped me. I knew that nothing would ever be the same after this moment. Every interaction between Nathan and me crackled with intensity, thick with an unspoken understanding that hung in the air like a storm waiting to break. But uncertainty loomed over us, a dark cloud of doubt hanging heavy in the air, as I questioned just how far either of us was truly willing to venture into the abyss. Daniel's words echoed relentlessly in my mind, a haunting reminder that life is far too fleeting to overlook the very things that ignite a fire within you. I fought to push it aside, forcing my mind to focus on the monotonous tasks at hand, all while the weight of anticipation hung heavily in the air. As I prepared the barbecue for our impending gathering, yet, no matter how fiercely I fought against it, my mind was relentlessly drawn back to that fateful night, to Nathan and the piercing intensity of his gaze upon me. Nathan was there, as always, radiating charm and weaving through the crowd with effortless charisma. As he cracked jokes that sent ripples of amusement through the gathering, his laughter echoed sharply, masking the undercurrents of unease lurking just beneath the surface. Yet, an electric tension crackled in the air whenever our eyes locked, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental was brewing beneath the surface. I couldn't tear my gaze away from him, captivated by the intensity of his movements and the haunting shift in his voice whenever he directed it toward me. In a moment of fleeting solitude, I slipped away to the bar for a drink, only to find Nathan suddenly looming beside me, his presence electrifying the air around us. The atmosphere of my friend's wedding was charged with an unsettling energy, a stark contrast to the joyous occasion. As laughter echoed around me, an undercurrent of anxiety gripped my heart, leaving me on edge, acutely aware that something was amiss. Are you truly all right? I nodded when he asked in a voice that was unnervingly soft and tightly restrained, yet a gnawing sense of unease gripped me, leaving me questioning the source of my discomfort. Yes, I am utterly drained. He beckoned toward the desolate balcony beyond, his voice low and urgent. Come, take a breath with me. You desperately need to escape from this overwhelming crowd. It had been a grueling day. And he flashed that familiar, wicked smile that sent my heart into a wild frenzy. In that fleeting moment, uncertainty gripped me like a vice. Was this a covert invitation, a mere figment of my imagination, or was I on the brink of uncovering a dark truth that I could not avert? I turned to face Daniel, who was erupting with laughter, his voice cutting through the tension as he engaged with friends scattered across the room. He remained oblivious to my departure with Nathan as we slipped out onto the balcony, the cool night air wrapping around us like a shroud, momentarily soothing the tempest of butterflies raging in my stomach. Nathan pressed against the railing, his presence a magnetic force that drew me in. I stepped closer. The overwhelming warmth of his presence stirred something deep within me, a tension crackling in the air between us. He said softly, his voice carrying an unexpected intensity, his voice lowering to a husky whisper that shivered through her. I strained to muster a smile, my voice betraying me, and the suffocating silence that ensued weighed down on us like a storm cloud ready to unleash its fury. You know, I have a feeling Daniel is all too aware of frowns. He's not oblivious to the weight of unspoken emotions. He witnessed the magnetic pull that binds us together. As Nathan pressed on, his voice thick with urgency, his gaze was unyielding, a fierce intensity that pierced through the air between us. I stood at the precipice of an irreversible fate, paralyzed by the weight of my choices, unable to retreat from the abyss that loomed before me. Nathan's gaze pierced through me, a charged silence enveloping us, and for a heartbeat, I felt the invisible pull between us tighten, daring me to confront the storm of emotions stirring within. The way he gazed at me, with no words spoken, only an electrifying connection, left me breathless and unprepared for what lay ahead. Just as I prepared to answer, Daniel's desperate voice pierced through the air, calling out for me from deep within. This was the moment when everything shattered and transformed into chaos. Was it a harrowing test, a seductive temptation, or was there someone lurking in the shadows, ready to cross the line into darkness? Are you coming back inside? My dear. Nathan stepped away from the railing, his smile morphing into an enigmatic expression that sent a shiver down my spine. I was jolted back to reality, my heart pounding violently in my chest. Go ahead, he urged with a fierce intensity. I plunged deep into the labyrinth of my mind, grappling with the chaos of what had transpired, and the unsettling sensation that the very ground beneath me had shifted dramatically. The main question loomed ominously. Did Daniel truly grasp the chaos unfolding around him? Or had he been orchestrating his own sinister game all along? The following week spiraled into a tempest of emotions, the wedding night haunting my thoughts relentlessly. Nathan's piercing words echoed in my ears. The intensity of his gaze seared into my memory as I turned away. I fought to maintain a facade of normalcy, but inside, turmoil raged. But there was this oppressive, almost choking tension that crackled between me and Daniel every time our eyes met. A shiver ran down my spine as I sensed his piercing gaze, as if he could see straight into my soul. Recognizing the perilous brink I was precariously balancing on, one fateful afternoon, Daniel and I were sprawled on the couch, aimlessly flipping through channels, when he nonchalantly broached the subject, igniting a tension that hung thick in the air. So, how did your intense conversation with Nathan unfold? The other night, I felt my heart race, pounding violently in my chest, as if it were trying to escape the icy grip of fear that enveloped me. What do you mean? He shrugged, avoiding my gaze. But I couldn't shake the image from my mind, the balcony, the drinks, the way you two seemed so intimately entwined in that moment. I stared at him, utterly stunned. He knew I was oblivious to the how or the when, yet the way he spoke so calm, so unbothered made my stomach churn with dread. Was this some twisted test? Or had I been unwittingly stepping into something far more sinister than I had ever imagined? I couldn't respond immediately. Words eluded me as I locked my gaze on him, desperately trying to decipher the truth hidden in his eyes. Was he consumed by anger? Daniel's eyes burned with intensity, a sharp contrast to the lightness of his voice as he replied, "You know I'm not stupid," his smile lingering, deceptively easy. Even as my curiosity and anger churned within me, he witnessed every moment. Daniel and I observed the way you gazed at him and the intensity of his gaze upon you. A shiver coursed through my veins, uncertainty gripping my heart as I faced the overwhelming challenge ahead. My heart raced as I feared he might explode. But Daniel raised his hand, his voice steady yet charged with an undercurrent of tension. "I'm not mad if that's what you're thinking," he declared, the weight of his words hanging in the air. He whispered, "I trust you, and I trust him," his breath escaping in a heavy sigh. Yet, there was an undeniable thrill coursing through him as the world around them shifted in ways he could hardly comprehend. I was utterly overwhelmed, the thrill coursing through me like electricity. He continued, his voice laced with intensity. "There's something intoxicating about being wanted, about truly feeling alive. I can see the way Nathan gazes at you and the way you react to him. It's almost hauntingly beautiful." My heart raced, leaving me speechless. How had I found myself in this tangled web? Was this all just a cruel game to him? To both of them? Was he subtly steering me toward Nathan without my awareness? Or was I spiraling into a whirlwind of overthinking? Daniel's reading the bewilderment on my face. "I'm not asking you to do anything, but I just wanted to let you know that I'm okay with whatever happens." I thought I understood, Daniel, but I couldn't breathe. My chest felt tight and my thoughts were jumbled. Now everything felt upside down, even though I thought I understood where he stood. What exactly was he asking me? What was I asking myself that night when Daniel went to sleep and I woke up lying in the dark? My mind was racing with ideas, and I couldn't help but think about Nathan. I thought about how easy it had been to fall into that space with him, and how it felt like there was something more simmering beneath the surface. Then I thought about Daniel and how he seemed to be planning this whole thing, as if he were playing a game with me. But what did it all mean? The following day, Nathan called me. First, it was a harmless enough phone call, just checking in to see how the week was going to discuss the upcoming weekend. But then, in his typical lighthearted tone, he asked, "So when's Daniel gonna let me take you out on a real date?" "Huh, Nathan went on. "I've been thinking about what you said the other night about the way things are, how we've been dancing around it for a long time, and my heart skipped a beat." I chuckled, but there was this awkward gap in the air, a tension I couldn't ignore. "What are you talking about?" There was a long silence on the other end, and then he finally spoke again. "You know what I mean? This thing between us, the chemistry, the attraction." A rush of heat flooded my face. This was the moment I had been dreading. How was I supposed to answer? "I don't know if we should talk about this," I said quickly, trying to pull back. "It's complicated." Nathan's voice softened, almost coaxing. "It doesn't have to be complicated. Just us. And I'm pretty sure you can feel it too." I felt the weight of his words. Was he right? Was this inevitable? And more importantly, was I ready to face the consequences of stepping into something I couldn't undo? The next few days felt like a slow, inevitable countdown to something I wasn't sure I could stop. I couldn't shake Nathan's words, couldn't get his voice out of my head. It was almost as if he was challenging me to admit what had been building between us and Daniel. He was acting like nothing had changed the game. He seemed to be playing with something I couldn't quite grasp, but I felt it growing stronger with every moment. It was a Saturday night when everything reached its boiling point. Daniel had planned a quiet evening at home, just the two of us watching movies and relaxing. But I knew Nathan was going to be around. He had texted earlier, asking if he could swing by for a quick drink after work. I had almost convinced myself not to worry about it. After all, it was just a casual drink, right? But when Nathan walked in, the air in the room shifted. I could sense something behind Daniel's smile, even though he didn't blink and welcomed him like any other guest. Friendly and laid back. The issue was, who was I in this? I sensed that Daniel and Nathan were both acting out their parts in this bizarre little drama. The tension increased as the evening wore on. Daniel was at ease, leaning back in his chair and cracking jokes. Nathan was also his typical charming self. But every glance between us, the subtle touches and the way our eyes lingered for just a moment too long, it made my skin crawl in the best way possible. Was I the one caught in the middle, unsure of where my loyalty belonged, or was I the one giving in to temptation? He re-Danieled nonchalantly. I should probably head out, but I could know he wasn't finished, since there was still unresolved business that went beyond the drinks. His eyes met mine as he stood at the door, and I instantly knew what he was going to say. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" Daniel was in the other room when he inquired in a low voice, and before I could respond, Nathan moved closer. I swallowed hard. "What is that?" He first remained silent. He simply stood there, staring at me with such intensity that my heart raced. And then he said in a voice that was almost audible above a whisper, "I'm thinking all the time. I want to know if you share my feelings or if I'm wasting my time." The image of Daniel sitting in the adjacent room, utterly oblivious to what was happening in front of him, made my mind spin. The guilt struck me like a wave. But beneath it was a surge of exhilaration, because Nathan wasn't asking for anything subtle anymore. Instead, he was putting everything on the line. The world seemed to tilt as I stammered, unable to form a coherent sentence. "This is wrong." He shook his head, and I thought, is it really, or is it just what we're supposed to believe, what everyone expects us to do? There was a fleeting moment where our hands nearly met, the unspoken tension hanging heavy between us, and I pulled it away. "We can't do this," I whispered. "Not like this." But even as I said it, there was a part of me that wasn't so sure. There was an irresistible attraction that was getting stronger every second. Daniel was standing there, watching us, his eyes unreadable, and for a moment, I thought I saw Al flicker with amusement and disappointment. "Is everything okay?" I turned to face Daniel, feeling guilty and merely babbling. He inquired in a calm manner, as if he were speaking to an old friend, but I could sense the strain behind his words. Daniel nodded, but his eyes briefly shifted to Nathan. "We should probably call it a night early today and tomorrow," because he didn't even wait for an answer before turning back toward the kitchen. It was obvious that this wasn't the end of the conversation. And when the door closed behind him, I was left standing in the living room, caught between two worlds. The weight of his presence and the unmistakable pull I felt toward Nathan made me feel as though I was trapped in a state of silence. War Daniel hadn't said anything directly, but I knew he was aware of the deafening silence in the house. When Daniel reappeared, he was sitting next to me on the couch. His eyes were intensely examining me, and for the first time in our marriage, I felt as though he could see right through every layer I had put up. Couldn't respond to him. The question remained unanswered. The reality is that I couldn't reverse what had already begun. I knew then that nothing would ever be the same, and the frightening part was that I wasn't even sure whether I wanted to.